Okay, we're going to take a look at an interview with Kamala Harris and Dana Bash from CNN because this short clip has a lot of examples of things that you need to learn and know when you do your own interviews with the media.
What I want to ask you about is what he said last month. He suggested that you happened to turn black recently for political purposes, questioning a core part of your identity.
Yeah.
Any
Same old tired playbook. Next question, please.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay, now that you've seen the clip, I like to tell clients to position themselves mentally in the parent-child dynamic or aunt-niece-nephew dynamic or teacher-student dynamic. However you can mentally get yourself in the space where you are the adult and the reporter, the media, is the child. This is not to diminish the value of journalists or their intelligence or their capacity, okay? This is just for clients to mentally get their head in the space where I believe it is most helpful. Many times people go into interviews like this. That's not going to work for you. And many times people will go into interviews like this, looking up at the reporter, seeking their approval, thinking that they're the expert. Both of those dynamics can be harmful to you, your message, and your goals when you go into interviews. It has worked for me personally, and it has worked for many of my clients when they have this mental space of, I'm the one with the answers, I'm the one in control, I'm the expert, and we are going to gently, lovingly, with curiosity, handle this interview, right? Now, remember how children ask a million questions, and sometimes you're like, yeah! Let's look at the media that way. When they ask a question, as many of you may see this clip and say, why'd she ask that question? Well, that's their job. And good or bad, indifferent, it doesn't matter. Their job is to ask questions. Their job is to get sound bites. So we don't fault children for asking questions. We do get frustrated, but that frustration shuts down dialogue. It also hurts the relationship. So when you're with the media, when you're in the presence of reporters, have this open-mindedness to they're allowed to ask any questions they want, whether you like them or not, whether they're publicly fair or not. Their job is to ask questions. You agreed to be there to have questions asked. You are always in control. If you see yourself up here, there's no question they can ask you down here, looking up at you, that should throw you off your feet, that it should be something that you can't handle. So that mindset can greatly help you. Okay, number 2, make the reporter ask a question. In this particular clip, I'm going to play it again. She does not actually ask a question.
But what I want to ask you about is what he said last month. He suggested that you happened to turn black recently for political purposes, questioning a core part of your identity.
Yeah.
Any
Same old tired playbook. Next question, please.
That's it?
That's it.
When you make reporters ask questions and do their jobs, you force them to frame one question. So you make them figure out what are they getting at instead of what many of them do, fish. Okay? Now, in this scenario, I want you to think about you and a cheating partner. When you have a cheating partner, you're going to fish. You're not going to ask specifics because then they'll answer specific questions and they won't give you what you're really looking for because you may miss the mark with your question. But when you make a reporter ask a question, you're forcing them to narrow their scope. Okay, so she didn't actually ask a question in that moment, but Harris also knew we don't have a lot of time here. I want to make this interview the best for my benefit, so I'm going to cut it off right now. She made a flippant comment about it, like, same old playbook. Next question. Now, do you see how she did that like a parent? She didn't say, don't waste your time. She didn't shut her down in a rude way. She said, next question. Like, don't waste your time. I'm stern on this line and you know better. You're not going to get anything out of me. You're not going to McDonald's for dinner, right? It was that stern move on, not what I see many folks do is kind of like this scenario when a guy's hitting on you and you don't say no, but you say no, but it's not clear. It's not direct. It leaves the door open. I'm not really interested. Not really interested leaves the door open. So when you're doing these interviews, if no is a no, make it clear, but do it in that loving kind of, I don't fault you for asking kind of way, but no, what else do you have going? Also in these situations, you can do something which is my favorite technique that I've called acknowledge and lead. So if a child is saying, can we go to McDonald's? And you're like, no, we have food at home. They're not going to accept that as an answer. And they're not going to accept that no as an answer. Why can't we go? You never let me go, right? They're going to keep going on and on. I believe acknowledging the question and leading them away from it into another conversation that you want to have is the best way to go. And many times, journalists are no different. They're going to stay in that space where you led them to. So you acknowledge, you might say something like, that's the same old playbook that we've heard for years. We're talking about jobs here, and we're talking about job growth at 3%, 5%. We've got middle Americans who are, and then when you lead them over to that and give them new bait, hopefully they see a new shiny object and they stay in that space and they don't go back to it. Most of the time, you are not going to have a contentious interview. Most of the time, you're just going on local news to promote your product, promote your business, talk about something that you're doing, sell tickets to an event. One of the bigger obstacles there is wasted time. So while you may not have reporters trying to get you with sound bites, you may have reporters spiraling off into questions that don't benefit your outcomes for your 3 to 4 minute segment live or your 1 minute and 45 second taped segment if they do a news package. So it's critical that you maintain control of the interview, whether it's contentious or friendly. Particularly if it's friendly, because then the reporters are like just fishing around looking for whatever's interesting to them and to their viewers, not necessarily what achieves your goals. So it's critical that you remember you're in charge. Remember what your goals for the interview are and make sure you're guiding that reporter along your pathway, and do not let them take you to their shiny objects. It's actually the other way around. And never, ever, ever say anything that you do not want to say. You do not have to answer a question just because it's been asked of you. You can absolutely answer the question that you were hoping they would ask.